I feel like shit.
Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
It's just one of those happy days.
The weekend comes.
It's just one of those days where you don't wanna wake up. Everything is everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you wanna justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, your life is on contract. Your best bet.
Just knock it off, you scum fuckhead.
It's just one of those days. It's just one of
Monday,
those.
happy days.
It's just one of those.
Happy days.
It's just one of those
Happy
days.
The weekend comes. The cycle runs. Ready to make
It's just one of those days, feeling like a freight train. First one to complain, please with the blood stain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better shoot, cause I'm fucking up your program. And if you're stuck up, you're just locked up. Next in line to get fucked up. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just,
I'm losing my cool.
it's all about
Monday, happy days.
It's just one of those,
Happy days.
it's just one of those
Happy
days.
The weekend comes. The cycle runs. Ready to make these days.
Feel like shit. My suggestion is distance. Right now I'm dangerous. Right now I'm dangerous.
Something's happening to the farm.
My day keeps going this way and this way.
I'm gonna pop you one so you'll start playing games.
Give me something great. Give me something great. I'm looking over like a chainsaw. A chainsaw. A motherfucking chainsaw.
What?
So come and get it.
What we got here is a case of mistaken identity, you know? See, now this here,
Not Robert.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chief Moody, and welcome to episode 67 of the Mood of the Nation podcast. Thank you all very much for tuning into tonight's episode. How is everyone doing this fine Sunday evening? I see there are 13 people watching the show, which is really good stuff. I really appreciate everyone coming along for tonight's episode. I know it's going to be a grand episode. Looking forward to it myself. Let me have a look and see who's in the chat just now, and then I'll bring my guest on for this fine evening. Let me see here. So we have Gammon Sandwich is in the chat, and I'll address something in a moment as he posted something in the chat just now. But even to yourself, Gammon, thank you very much for watching. We also have Durham Fox. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. Nice to see you here. We also have Turbo Duck Kid. How you doing? Evening G to the... Good evening, Turbo. Thanks very much for watching the show. Streaky Bacon, Inshallah, Infidels, and Chief Moody. Inshallah, Streaky Bacon. Thanks very much for watching the show. Knock off, you scum bucket. That's from the opener for the show. Really good stuff. Yes, here's the comment that Gammon Sandwich posted in the chat. I'm going to be a granddad. Gammon Sandwich, well done. Congratulations to you, sir. That's really good news. Really good to see that you're going to be a granddad coming along. Everyone in the chat, can we all please put a 14 in the chat for Gammon Sandwich? Because this is really great news to hear. Well, I'm really happy for you, Gammon Sandwich. You're going to be a granddad. Congratulations once again. Appalachian Nationalist, Ethan to you too. Thanks very much for watching the show. We also have Rory Herbert in the chat as well. Thanks very much for watching the show, Rory. Appreciate you being here. We have Kitchen Skillet. Good evening to you too, Kitchen. Thanks very much for watching, as per usual. Kenny Henny, how you doing? Thanks very much for watching the show. Appreciate you being here. Let me see, Streaky Bacon. We also have Kingdom of Vinland. How you doing, Kingdom? Thanks very much for watching, as per usual. Appreciate you being here. Picking Guys 1972. I guess I'm supposed to say congratulations, but thanks very much for watching the show. Appreciate you being here. Let me see. Anglo Saxon, good evening to you too. Thanks very much for watching the show. Salutations, that's what it was meant to say. No worries, that's totally fine. The European Housewife, evening to you too. Thanks very much for watching the show. Appreciate you being here. And also Exile Viking, good evening to you too. We also have English Rose. Hello, sorry I'm late. No worries, English Rose. You're actually just on time, so not to worry about that whatsoever. I see some 40s in the chat just now, which is really good stuff. Jason Gibson in the chat. Thanks very much for watching the show. Don't think I've seen you before, but if you're new here, thank you very much for watching. Please give the stream tonight a like, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. That would be much appreciated. I think that's all up to date with the chat just now, which is really good stuff. So excellent stuff. Good. Right then, I'll just get right in to bring on my guest for this fine evening. And again, once again, thanks very much for coming along and watching the show, everyone. There's 20 people watching just now, which is good stuff. Hopefully more people will come along for the show later on. We'll see. We'll just need to wait and see with that. Oh, sorry, one last thing before we move on to introducing my guest for this evening. If you would like to support me financially or contribute to the show or in any way, shape, or form, you can do so by donating to me through PayPal directly or even on my Ko-fi page. And please, when I do that, don't feel obligated as if you have to do that. I know I keep repeating this, but I really want to make this point very clear. The point is, the option is there. If you'd like to support me financially through those links, great, awesome. If not, then again, that's also fine. That's also awesome with that. I do appreciate the financial contributions from time to time with the show, and I honestly do with that. Let me see, before I get onto that, Baz, thanks very much for watching the show. Appreciate you being here. Right then, let's get right into the show itself. Tonight, Sunday, the 27th of February, I will be bringing on my guest for this evening. And also, I'll save that towards the very end of the show, but tonight I have with me someone who's been part of the education system as a teacher and also as a content creator. She does post videos from time to time on her channel, not always, but she can, of course. And I'm pretty sure everyone has seen and heard about this person before. She's appeared on one stream, I believe, with Bonnie Ladd not too recently, and she was mentioned by the likes of, say, Laura Towler and everyone else from PA, and of course people from our circles within the politics. But tonight with me, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you this fine Sunday evening, my guest for this fine evening, which would be Abby Wood, aka the Anglo Saxon teacher. We have her on the screen just now. So Abby, thanks very much for coming along on the show, and appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really very nice of you. If I can manage to say something riveting after that great introduction, you made me sound quite famous, but I'm not really.
It's just me with that. I normally do that when I bring on my guests. It's kind of like a bit of a build-up to bringing the guest on type of thing, like almost kind of a sense of like making them like larger than life type of figures, if you will, with that. But that's just me. So, but I do see there's people. Even when I mentioned this on the previous episode, number 66, when I mentioned you were going to be on the show for today, everyone seemed really excited about that. Like, oh, you're bringing on the Anglo Saxon teacher on. You know, really couldn't wait for that. So yeah, I have you on the show. So let's get right into it for tonight's episode in terms of getting to know you a bit more with that and how you got into politics and all. Well, it got into nationalism in this case with that. So maybe of a cliche at this point, because I normally ask this question first of all with every other guest I bring on the show, but I think it's interesting for me, and I really want to know, is that what was it that got you into nationalism to begin with? Like, what was it that got you into our side of like politics, if you will?
Right. Well, I can answer that really easily because I didn't actually get into it. I was kind of born into it. So I've not been on any sort of journey like a lot of people. Like, although I did have an interruption, I suppose, when I was a stroppy teenager and in my 20s and so on. But I think what it was for me as a child, I had two very significant things happen. One was that I was born into a military family. So my mother and my father were both in the Royal Navy. And my mother was only 16 when she went to, well, in 1948, she was 16. So it wasn't long after the war. And she'd met this woman, this German woman. My mother was born in Sheffield and she grew up in Grimsby, and she was a bit of a social climber, and she was one of these people that was going to be, you know, the best and do so well for herself and everything. Anyway, so she went to Germany in 1948, and she stayed with quite a lot of German families, and this is in Hamburg, which had been very badly bombed in the war. So she'd always been very realistic and very enlightened about what had really gone on. And I think with my mother, she kind of never she really did get that we'd been lied to, and we are always being lied to about everything, not just one thing, it's everything. And I think if if she was around today, I mean, she probably is turning in her grave at the moment about what's going on with in Ukraine and everything. But the other thing was as well, um, we emigrated, being part of the Navy and everything. We went to live in South Africa. My father was in the South African Navy for a little while, and 2 years. I was about 10. So I went to South Africa, and of course, again, you see, you become very realistic. You see things. I just saw everything I'm very a realist about race. So there's that, and there's that the other issue, the European issue. And just going back to that, there was this program on, I don't know if anybody on here is old enough to remember, there was a mini series in the 1970s, I think, called Holocaust, had Meryl Streep in it. And I remember, I don't know if anybody remembers, but I remember watching it as a family, because you had to watch everything as a family back in the olden days. You couldn't, because that's how it was. You had the TV in the living room, sort of thing. But I remember watching this thing, and my mother went absolutely ballistic. It was like, that word was never around at that time, and she went on and on and on about how it was not a true depiction of the Second World War and what had happened, and so in the concentration camps and so on. And so it was, that's me, that was how it all began. And as I say, I had a blip because of course I wasn't really that close to my mother, and of course, so everything she said used to annoy me. So I went through this phase in my sort of teens and that, where everybody was a Nazi and typical stuff that you get now. But yeah, I kind of had to acknowledge that everything she ever said was true. So here I am.
I see. That's actually pretty interesting with that, especially of course back in those times. When it comes to say like a bit of my whole history of how I got into the whole nationalism scene, I mean, when I was a teenager back in high school, I was fairly liberal back then. I believed everyone should be all equal, equal rights and all of that. We're all one race, the human race, and all of that, so on and so forth. It wasn't until around about, say, the early 2010s, 2013 and 14 and onwards, was when the whole kind of Gamergate fiasco started. And it started off as a bunch of feminists coming in and trying to talk about how video games and all of that were very sexist towards women and all of that. And then it kind of spawned off from there as something more than just video games sexist and all of that. It went on to becoming what we're pretty much seeing today with the current climate. And even then I did start off more as a civic nationalist. So I support people like Sargon and Tommy Robinson and all of that. It wasn't until around about, say, the late 2010s, 2017, 2018, around about that time frame, where I started to kind of dabble into a bit more with the ethno-nationalist side. So of course people like Millennial Woes, Mark Collett and all of that. So although even back then I wouldn't call myself an ethno-nationalist back then, because it was more kind of a sense of denial kind of a thing, because as much as at that point I thought all of the talking points and all of that, if you were, made a lot of sense, but it was I can't be that, due to the whole stigma of it all. That is until around about 2020. I might have even said this before in the past on this stream or previous streams I was on, but around about 2020, and I'm sure you may know this, Abby, everyone in the chat may know about this one I'm going to be talking about just now. But what red-pilled me even more was the whole post-George Floyd BLM riots happened, mainly, of course, in America. I know there was stuff happening here in the UK as well, but there was a lot of riots that were going on in America. A lot of property damage. People were assaulted, even killed in some cases regarding to that. This idea of black people are being systematically oppressed by the dreaded white man from all these white countries. Never ever mention that when it comes to non-white countries, but that's beside the point. And even then, when it comes to that, they always talk about, oh, these black people, these great Africans are part of the architects of Europe and all of that. They helped build Europe. It's like, okay, you say that, but then they're also going through systematic racism. Like pick one. There was no any consistency whatsoever regarding to that. So for that case, well, it was actually not just that. It was also to do with like a certain debate I've watched. Again, I've mentioned this before, but just for context in this case, I'll mention it here. It was the debate. I don't know if you've seen this, Abby, but it was a debate between Laura Towler and Ricky Dooland that happened back in 2020. Was that a debate you watched by any chance?
I did see it. Yeah, I can't remember it all. I've watched so many things now. I can't remember exactly what was said on it, but so many things have happened to, I suppose, speed up the process for lots of people. But I think for me as well, not just, when you say going on a sort of what got me into nationalism, I think just to sort of go on like from what you're saying as well. I have been on a bit of a YouTube journey, because when I tell you what happened. It was I was working in the Middle East, and I got so frustrated, really frustrated, because I couldn't find any truth anywhere. Every time I sort of listened to something, all I could get access to was things like Radio 4, BBC and stuff, and I'd listen to things like they've always got these porno voices, haven't they, these BBC announcers, and they're saying things like, oh, there's a little girl, this is the migrant crisis we're talking about in 2015, little girl in a red dress and she's all lonely and blah blah blah, and sob stories and all that sort of thing. And I remember thinking, I need to find out what's really happening here. This is the 2015 migrant crisis. So I started to search it for it on the internet. And that's how I realized that there was actually something like YouTube that exists with other people out there who've got opinions like mine. And I began to feel a bit better, because I realized I wasn't alone in feeling so, I don't know, alienated, because I couldn't help feeling that everybody around me was just so it's just so sucked in and so dim about everything. I don't know, maybe that makes me sound really arrogant, but and then I started watching things like Alex Jones, and then I realized that I watched Sargon as well. And then you kind of get led along the path. And then I found Laura Towler, God knows how, but suddenly she popped up, and I started watching her stuff. And it led me down that. So I did go on a bit of a journey, if you like, into nationalism as we kind of know it and talk about it. But yeah, sorry, what was the question? I do waffle. I'm so sorry.
No, that's completely fine. I think you pretty much answered it anyway, because the whole point of the question was, how did you get into nationalism to begin with? And you pretty much said you were born into it already. And even just now, you said, just like many of us, we started off as depending on where you start, some people would say they start off as liberals or left-leaning type of people. Then they would move all over to civic nationalism, because that's supposed to be the nationalism for everybody, especially when you hear them now. Like, oh, anybody can be British. As long as you have a British passport, you're British, apparently. To the point where people were just sick and tired of their complete, utter BS and how they're basically gatekeepers at this point, which is why they then turned to people like your Mark Collis, your Laura Towlers, your Iconoclast, your Absolute State of Britons, and everyone from that side of more further to the right, of what people would say, the dissident right, if you will. And people like myself would watch their content, maybe read some articles and all of that, would then say, yeah, it makes a lot more sense. And I would definitely want to maybe watch more of their stuff, subscribe to them. Maybe they could be a way of how I can help improve myself and all of that, and improve my life and all of that. And then around about, say, 2020, for me anyway, that's when I started hearing about the new political party they were forming. Well, Mark and Laura were forming, called Patriotic Alternative. and I joined roundabout. Actually, before I get into that, sorry, wait, are you part of Patriarch Alternative or just like a supporter of PA at the moment
No,
or anything like
I
that?
mean, yes, I am very much so. I actually did quite a lot of things for them when about a year and a half ago. I don't know how it happened, but they were going to start this alternative curriculum. So I did quite a lot of writing, but I don't know why it seems to have died a death a bit. You don't hear them talk about it much. There's a lot of content on there. So because my sort of area was early years, and I've done lots of work within that sort of that sort of area of education. I've been head of a school and done consultancy work and everything. So I've done a lot of research into child development and stuff. So I wrote an awful lot of the things like how children learn, how they learn to read, how they learn, and it was all about. Most of it was about. I tried to make it really parent friendly and homey and sort of easy to read and everything. So, but to be honest, I don't really know where it's going at the moment. You don't hear them mention it that much. So yeah, that's how I was involved with them in the first place. And then of course the other way I got involved was when I decided I was going to start making YouTube videos. And I called Laura and I said to her, I want to make videos. I really do. And I'll tell you why. The reason why. Do you know who I'm talking about when I say the mad Danish lady? Do you know who I'm referring to? I watched some of her videos, and when I was working in the Middle East, and I just couldn't bear them. They were so awful. They were so cringe. And I remember thinking, she was saying the same things as us, although she couldn't kind of make her mind up. And I remember thinking, I can do this. Why don't I do it? So I did. I got in touch with Laura and I said to her, I really want to make YouTube videos. So she said to me, she asked me a question. She said, what software are you using? That question meant absolutely nothing to me. I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I thought, this is very technical now. But then I just took my time and I made it. Somebody in the chat's got the right answer. The Danish lady, yeah. So yeah, I just kind of learned as I went along how to do it, and yes, and I'm always sort of in touch with them, and I've been to the conferences. Well, one of them, there's another one soon, and so yeah, very much involved. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Right. Now that you mention it with that content creator, I think I'm aware of who they are, but that's pretty much it. I might have actually maybe seen a video of them or two here and there, but I thought, yeah, like, it was decent stuff, but I was more into watching content, say, like woes and
Yeah.
Mark Collins and all of that. But even saying that, I thought, yeah, they're pretty decent videos, and it seemed at the time there were well liked members of the community. So that's really good stuff with that. For me, when it comes to PA, I've joined PA around about 2020, as I said earlier on. I think it was around about, say, I don't know if it became like a full-on vetted member, because the first time I met everyone from, well, in this case, the region I'm in, PA Scotland, was round about November. We met at the Arthur Seat in Edinburgh for the very first time. And before then, I was pretty nervous meeting up with everybody because, of course, there's the whole narrative within the mainstream media, how they like to portray us nationalists as these big, thuggish, balding, people with like swastikas all over them, doing the Roman salute and all of that. So I knew that wasn't going to be the case, but obviously for me, there was a bit of a bit of a nervousness coming into that. But then when I met up with everybody for the first time on that day, I was just really just taken aback. I remember thinking, oh, well, they're not like what the media portrays them as. They're just these normal, everyday people you would see they're just walking down the street, for example. And I remember just thinking, oh, all right. Well, if I was wrong about this when it comes to nationalism, what else could I be wrong about? And that's when I get to speak to a lot of people within within PA, when it comes to that, of course, like Mark and Laura and everyone else, all of that, and just over like time after time, I just remember thinking, there's actually really nothing wrong with having these beliefs. There really isn't. But I honestly, the only biggest regret I have when it comes to being an ethno-nationalist is that I wish I've learned about this sooner rather than later, because at this moment, I'm currently 28 years old. I wish I would have learned this stuff a
Well, should I
bit.
been 60 and thinking that?
Yeah, but I
I
was
mean,
just,
come on, better late than never, honestly.
yeah.
And you're right. I mean, honestly, the people involved with PA are just really nice. They're just lovely people. And well, anybody who sits on this side of the sort of political, if you want to call it a divide, I don't see it as a divide so much anymore. I just find everybody is just so normal and so nice, and you never get anyone saying horrible things, and it's just a lovely community. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one of the best things about PA is it really is all about the idea of community building, especially when it comes to, well, I wouldn't say just with regional groups, whichever you're in. I would say even just at some time to time coming together, you really do believe there is a sense of bonding with each other, a real sense of community with one another. Like everyone would be there for each other. Everyone would talk to each other and get to know each other a bit more. I know I was at the previous conference back in October, which I had a very grand time regarding to that. Again, the thing that I wish I could have done a bit more was talking to like more people coming in when I was at the conference, because it was me just hanging around with most of the people, like the regional group I was in. And there was a lot of faces I do recognize. There was actually, I've seen, I'm sure you may have heard of him before, but Saint Harrison, do you know who he is?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw him there as well, but of course I didn't click who he was until later. But
Mhm.
that's another story. There were lots of people like that. It was really funny, but
Mhm.
yeah, so it was just really friendly event.
It really was, yeah. Even when I met Mark and Laura for the first time in person, because obviously they were at the main entrance, obviously greeting everybody, making sure if they're the right person to get their like tickets and all of that. And I remember I shook Mark's hand. I'm just like, "Oh, hi, Mark, it's me, Stephen, or you might know me as Chief Moody online." And I just gave my first name out, but I remember just seeing his face. He was just like, "Oh, you're Chief Moody," and then Laura was like, "Oh, it's nice to see that we got a face of who you are," kind of a thing. So I was like, "Yeah." So of course, this was like before I was doxxed by Hope Not Hate and all of that with the article back
Oh
in
no,
November.
no, that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite. I wasn't. It was more of like a surprise for me at that point, because the one thing I was mortified by with that article was my photograph they used to dox me with. It was. I know people might bring this up in the chat because people have seen it. It's my face. With I think I was maybe tipsy or slightly drunk because I was at a work party at that point. And then I was wearing like a cowboy hat. We were doing like it wasn't like fancy dress up or anything like that, but but I was just looking at that and thought, oh, good lord. But no, I mean, I'm still doing this anyway. Even if I got doxxed, I'm still going out leafleting, litter picking, and all of that. Still supporting PA, still doing content and all of that. Because honestly, that's not really going to stop me, no matter what. So sorry, going back to the conference real quick, that story. So I met Mark and Laura for the first time in person, and then there was a lot of people who I recognized. I'm like, right, I haven't seen their faces, but I recognize the voices. So I saw St. Harrison. I didn't greet him or anything like that at all, because I was just kind of like, well, they're busy having a conversation. I didn't want to be that guy who would just go up to people and be like, "So, hi, I'm Chief Moody. You might have seen my show and all of that. Okay, check out my show, and okay, great, bye." It was just like, because obviously they'd be busy with having a conversation with other people and such. The one meetup I did at the conference was Sam Melia, who I've had on the show before with Laura, and it was quite funny with that, to be quite honest with you, because I walked up again. He was having a conversation with another gentleman, and I thought, right, this could be the one time I can maybe see him in person up until the next conference or another special PA event or anything like that. So I thought I'll go up and see Sam and see how it is. So I walked up to him and I introduced myself. Hey, Sam, it's me, Chief Moody. And he's like, oh, Chief Moody. And I never expected this, but he just gave me like a big old hug. And I'm just like, oh, that's great. I never expected that from yourself, Sam. But we didn't really get to talk a lot, though, at that conference, because that was at that time. There was a lot of commotion going on with the venue being doxed and all of that, and of course all the lefties were just like, oh, we're gonna take down like these far right fascists and blah blah blah. But then of course they saw they saw the post at I think it was 6:00 or 6:30. That's when all the photographs started coming out of the conference itself, and basically showcasing everybody. Yeah, this conference happened. It wasn't cancelled, and all those same lefties and other quote unquote nationalists all went silent after that. It was quite funny in regard to that, of course, but.
Oh, that was great, wasn't it? I thought that was really amazing.
It was, yeah. I just because they acted like as if this was like a big win for them, like Hope Not Hate, Red Flare, and all of that. Like, oh yes, we know where the conference is going to be held. We're going to take it down, which I find so funny with these people. I've said that again. These people run a meme. These exact people are the same groups of people who will tell to your face that they're all anti-establishment and they're all liberal. Oh, like screw the government. We're anti-establishment and all of that. Oh, but then the next minute they'll be like, hey, Mr. Establishment, could you maybe do something with these horrible, icky, far right neo-Nazi fascists and stopping them from having their conference? It was. Yeah, like you can never take these people seriously. And I loved how when all the photographs start coming out, you just see them on other platforms, especially Twitter, of them just sparking out, like pointing the finger at each other, like, no, this person's to blame, no, that group's to blame, and all of that. It was just so funny. And you can also see the contrast between these lefty types and say people like PA, because again, like I said earlier on, PA has a very strong sense of community, whereas groups like Hope Not Hate and all of that, they really have no community whatsoever. They're all very individualistic. Some of them, of course, all backed by the government, but even then, that you don't really feel as if like they're really for each other, kind of a thing. Not like say like groups of PA and all of that. But no, nonetheless, it was funny regarding to that, and I really can't wait for the next conference coming up, which will be really grand with that. So, excellent. I think we might have gone on a bit too much, but we're actually about half an hour into the show already, which is really good. I think the next thing I really want to ask you about, I know that you talked about this in your videos and, of course, other platforms like that. You yourself were like, I'm pretty sure you maybe still are a teacher now, but well, currently speaking, are you maybe doing like homeschooling or maybe like still working in the education system in primary schools or high schools or anything like that at all, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. I don't work as a teacher now, and the reason I don't is because I just couldn't bear it. I just could not stand working around teachers in this country and teachers abroad. Now, I gave up my last job because I retired anyway. I would have retired anyway, whatever the case. But that was in 2019, and my last job was in Oman. So I'd been there because I went to work in the Middle East. People go there for all sorts of reasons. Mostly people go and work abroad because they want to make some money, get some tax-free salary for a little while and save up and all that sort of thing. So you get loads and loads of British teachers when you're working abroad. And in they've got British international schools all over the place. So that's what I'd been doing for the last 10 years up to 2019. But as I say, just meeting, I just couldn't stand it. I got fed up of walking out of staff rooms because the conversation was so moronic. I don't know what that says about me. I kept thinking, one day I'm going to bump into a teacher. I'm going to get really friendly with someone out here who thinks like me. And do you know what? I never did. But the only people the best people I met when I was working abroad were actually South African teachers. They are so normal, honestly. They're so realistic about the world. So that was good. What was it? Oh yeah, about homeschooling. So yes, I'm very. No, I don't really like the idea, to be honest. I think it's not something I'd really like to have done with my own children. But having said that, in today's world, if I had children, I would be so worried and I'd be so concerned about letting them go to school. Obviously, depending on where you live, because there's a big difference in area. And where I live at the moment, there's some great schools around here. They're very, I mean, this is a 98% white area. And I know, and I've run this little, we called it a drama school, because my daughter's a teacher as well, and we ran it as a Saturday thing, and it's kind of grown into more of a community thing where sort of parents bring their children and we do drama and other activities on a Saturday morning. But it's kind of got into especially when the lockdown was on, we got into a sort of pattern where we were talking to parents and responding to what they wanted, and we were sort of not exactly providing homeschooling, but it was more like a community thing, and it was really good, and it was something that I kind of would love to see grow in other places. But you do need a teacher that's not part of the system to organize it, if you see what I mean, and they just don't exist. So, but no, I'm not a fan of homeschool, but as I say, I would do it if I had to.
That's completely fair, yeah. I mean, when it comes to the whole homeschooling aspect, I mean, I don't have any kids of my own at the moment, but obviously I'm waiting for the right person to meet. A woman who has, like, of course, strong moral values and all of that. That's the most important thing for me with that. And if we do have kids, because of the whole current climate the education system is at the moment, especially here in Scotland, it's unbelievable. I'll get to that just in a moment. I'll definitely see if I can homeschool my kids. I mean, I don't know if I know it will not be like an easy task, but anything for my children not to be indoctrinated and to feel like complete, like feeling worthless and feeling like complete scum because of what their ancestors might have done to minorities in the past, then that's exactly what I'll be doing if I do have kids, having them to be homeschooled. Because I mean, currently speaking, with the education system, it's a mess. Everything from, say, critical race theory to what's going on here in Scotland, what the SNP are really wanting to do, which is to promote this idea of asking certain students between, say, year groups like S4 to S6. So that's about ages. I don't know if I might be right in saying this, but that's ages between about 13, 14 up until 16 or 17, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on that, or maybe slightly correct. I'm not entirely too sure. But what they want to do is they want to ask these kids, these teenagers, this whole sex education, more specifically on when was it your first time? Have you tried, anal sex and all of that? And it's not only is it the most intrusive type of questioning, but it's the most pervasive type of questioning you could ever ask. Because I mean, I think it was Cyborg that said it on his stream on PA Talk, that if you were to ask a child, if you were not part of the government or anything like that at all, if you were to ask a child that, that would be reported and you would be arrested for it. And of course, rightfully so. But because in this case, it's the government that's wanting schools to do this and ask your own kids these types of questions, all of a sudden that's completely fine to do so. And it's like, what exactly is going on with this country? Like, I don't want to call it a parody at this point, because it's disgusting. It really is utterly disgusting what they're doing to these kids. And I can definitely understand why a lot of parents at this point would be worried, and at this point would want to definitely homeschool their kids, because I actually do take my hat off to those people, because those are the very parents that do actually care about their kids and not wanting them to be indoctrinated with anything like that at all. Because I mean, what they're being exposed to today is just it's filled to the brim of complete degeneracy. like Drag Queen Story Hour and all of that, going so extreme when it comes to sexual education and talking about how there's multiple sexes and genders and all of that, talking about furries at some cases, and it's like, what does all this stuff have anything to do with sex education? Like, nothing. It's just, it really comes off as grooming behavior. The mainstream media would criticize PA, like when with the whole Warzone or Call of Duty Warzone thing, when Mark had like some streams, like tournament streams he did, and the media were like, oh, this is them and PA trying to recruit children, and they're indoctrinating them with far right ideas. Which, I mean, first of all, the game is rated 18, so that means like no one under the age of 18 is allowed to play it to begin with. Second of all, you want to call that grooming, but everything, say, with sex education, like, that's filled with lefty like lenses and all of that, and not completely biased when it comes to that side of the political fence, that's not grooming or anything like that at all. It's beyond a joke at this point.
Yeah.
But sorry, I again, that's me going on a tangent again when it comes to that.
No, it's horrible. It's really gross, this whole thing. Because when I first started making YouTube videos, I did it for a while, and then for some reason I decided I wasn't going to do it, and I deleted everything. It was just very spontaneous thing to do, because I kept thinking, well, why am I saying all this? Everyone else is saying the same thing, and it's, I'm not saying anything new here. And then it was one of those things where I kind of regretted it, because and I've never actually been able to build it up again. But anyway, it's fine. I just do it for fun. But one of the videos I made the first time round was, I really did look into, because it's a new curriculum, you see, this sex. Well, and in Scotland as well, it's slightly different and worse. But in England, I'll just talk about England and Wales, with the national curriculum. They came up with the new, it's called the SRE, Sex and Relationship Education. And I looked at it really carefully, because obviously I didn't have to teach it, so I wasn't going to be too bothered. Mm-hmm. But when I looked at it, I was very bothered, because it was really gross. It was horrible. And then I started looking at things like, who was writing it? Where was all this stuff coming from? And I found a few names, and I mean, God, it was just, honestly, it was absolutely grotesque. Some of these females, I mean, if I said their names, you probably wouldn't have heard of them. But and then I was trying to get answers as to why do they think that 5-year-olds need to learn things like the names of all body parts. So just quickly, when you're teaching very young children, there's a song, heads, shoulders, knees and toes. You must have heard that thing. Well, there's a new version which puts all the body parts in. And I mean, why do we need to do that? And I kept asking these questions. Why is this necessary to change this? And the only answer I kept getting from anywhere was the same thing, because children need to be safe. They need to be in the know about sex and everything and relationships and so on, because it's keeping them safe. Now, I don't get that. I simply do not get the logic here, because the more you know about something, I don't know, it suddenly becomes quite evil and scary. And it is about, I definitely think it's about making paedophilia normal. Mm-hmm. I really do. There's an awful lot of emphasis on how you feel, and it's natural to feel a certain way if you do certain things to yourself. I mean, God, I'm not sorry, I'm being a bit euphemistic, but I can't get my words out. But I just have to be, I'm afraid, because I'm, a certain age and all that. But you simply can't. Children just don't like it. They don't want to acknowledge things like that. They want to talk about aeroplanes and things that playing soccer and fighting with their friends and all that sort of thing. They don't want to know. They do not want someone sitting them down and talking to them and explaining things so explicitly at such a young age. It's great. Did you ever have that when you were a child? Do you remember anything like that?
I've never ever encountered anything like that at all. I mean, when it comes to like sex talk, I mean, that was when I was like a teenager, around
Yes.
about 13 or 14, but it wasn't like anything too explicit or anything like that. It was my granddad who had to teach me stuff about that. Of course, again, nothing like too explicit or anything like that. It was just a case of, well, I'm just gonna tell you this now because, oh, man to man, I know you're growing up and all of that. You're going through a bit of changes and all of that. I'm like, yeah. So he would just carry on, just like, well, there will come a point where you might meet someone you may have feelings for and all of that, or even just before then, there will be a point where you have if you're alone or anything like that at all, you might have a certain feeling down there, and I just want you to know it's a natural feeling and all of that, and not to worry about that. And I remember at the time I was feeling like pretty just awkward. I'm like, okay, and I just like walked away from that. But again, it's a more understandable time to talk to someone at that age, because again, they're going through changes. This is them leaving childhood and going into adulthood and all of that. That's the whole point when it comes to high school anyway with that. But yeah, anything too explicit or anything like that. Even back in high school and had sex ed, again, it was more to do with like talking about sex and all of that.
Yeah, it was more about functions and biology.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I've never, looking back at it, I've never been taught about, oh, here's different sexualities. Here's a sexuality where you can dress up as a cartoon animal and you call yourself a furry. Like, we've never. In fact, I don't think we even talked about transgenderism even back then, which was
yeah.
And I remember then, I don't think we've even talked about stuff like that. It was, as you said, it was more to do with like the functionality of it all. But again, I don't know if maybe if I was part of the last generation who like maybe learned at that point when it comes to sex ed. But nowadays, what kids are being exposed to now is just, as people said in the chat, it's complete nonsense. It's very questionable what these kids are pretty much going through at this stage.
Yeah. It's terrible. And I really do feel sorry for the people in Scotland, because I've been following I don't know his real name, Mr. No Chance. His videos about he's been quite vocal and being quite proactive and sort of making objections to it all. But just hearing about what they're telling kids in Scotland is just 10 times worse than what I'm hearing is happening in England. I don't know. I might be wrong. They might both be as awful. But I just don't know what I'd do if I was a parent in Scotland with that going on. It's just awful. Because really, I mean, what is it? How many people are actually transgender anyway? When I was a child, I had a relative, and her name, this is really weird, her name was Errol, right, which is a weird sort of name to give to a girl, but they must have known, and she must be about, I don't know, about 80 now. So look, this is years ago, it's coming back to me now, and she used to wear tweed jackets and corduroy trousers, and she looked very manly, and we always just have this there was this family sort of not joke, but this sort of thing going on, that is Errol a man, or is she a man, really a man who pretends to be a woman? And that's all it was. She's the only person. She was a woman, because she ended up having children, and as far as I'm aware, she had a reasonably normal life. But that's the only person that I ever came across in my entire life. So there's not many of them anyway. So why do we need to make it into such a big deal for a start? That's the first thing. I don't know.
Well, I would say that it's not an original point. I know I may have said this in the show previously, but not just myself, but everyone else from our side has made a similar point to this. The whole reason why they're pushing this whole LGBTQ plus XZY023, whatever other alphabetical letters or numbers they want to put in there, is really it's more to do with like setting up an agenda. So again, going back to my past a little bit, I remember like hearing about stuff about, say, like gays and whatnot, like, oh, as long as like they do stuff in the privacy of their own home, then what should be the bother with that? Which, I mean, for me as a lefty type. I wasn't like a communist or anything like that at all, but again had some liberal values or classical liberal values at that point. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I agree with that. At the time, that as long as like they're not causing any harm with anybody and they're doing the privacy of their own home, that what seems to be the problem. Then of course, later on, it spawned from being that idea to now just being completely degenerate. Look at all the stuff we're seeing in these pride marches, if you will, in major metropolitan cities during the summer. And again, it's just, you can even see it recently. It's gotten even worse because now children are being brought into it and even being exposed to this type of crap. You got people in bondage gear having like dog kind of masks, if you will, going up to kids, and the kids, of course, are quite confused on what is this, not understanding the proper context of the whole sexuality of it all. And it's just it's grim. It's absolutely grim stuff of what we're seeing at the moment with that. And I do believe a point you made earlier on about the numbers. I don't know if this may be Ragnar Ironspear even has it in the chat. 0.2% of the population of Britain claim to be trans. Well, there you go. A very, very small minority with that. And again, just going back to what I was going to say, the point being made, the reason why they're promoting this type of idea is because they're trying to push an agenda of destroying the family unit, destroying all the traditional values that we do stand for. Everything to do with that, it's a whole deconstruction of it all. It completely is a deconstruction of it all. And that's why you have groups like PA, or even further extent, you have groups like here in Scotland, for example, you've got the Scottish Family Party, who really are completely. I know No Chance interviewed Richard Lucas, who's the leader of that party. They're completely against this whole progressivism BS we're seeing at the moment, and it's a complete, utter shameful tactics that they're doing to promote this type of stuff to children. And I mean, it's only just going to get worse from here. I know people will say with that, but you're just bringing up the whole slippery slope argument. It's kind of like that whole, what I talked about before, the film Cuties. I don't know if you've heard about this controversy when that film came out on Netflix. There's people who are defending it, of saying, you're bringing up the whole slippery slope argument. It's just a film. Why do you care about it so much? And yet, look what's happening now. Like the teaching kids about being intrusive with these types of questions. There was even an article I talked about a previous episode where, if you find a child who's 13 years old or a bit older than that, and they're going through any sexual activities, what to do is do not report it to the teachers or the social service workers or even the police. Just let them get on with their way and don't even report to the parents whatsoever, because we just want to maintain their privacy when it comes to that. And it's beyond the joke. It's a complete, utter gateway into what was the term? Not legitimizing, but normalizing pedophilia. That's exactly what this boils down to, and it's disgusting. And the fact that,
I'm sorry, I'm horrible. Jumping in.
Don't worry.
No, I was just going to say about gays just general gay people. It's weird, but I don't know what the percentage of people who are gay is either. It's also not very big, but gay people have always been around since the beginning of time. And I don't think that's a problem. Like you say, as long as people don't sort of flaunt it in your face, just like we heterosexuals don't go around flaunt it, or shouldn't. I mean, does anyone care about our sex lives? No, we don't care about theirs either. But they do, don't they? And it's just the whole thing is the fact that they feel they have to do this. They have to make an issue of it. And I remember one thing my mother told me, as a nurse, she said that one of the best things that ever happened in nursing, and she was really conservative, as you've probably gathered, was when they let men into the profession. And because the reason for that was a lot of men in a woman's world. I'm not saying all male nurses are gay. Of course I'm not, or anything like that. No, I would never be so stupid as to say anything like that. It's like all male nursery school teachers are not gay either. But but you do get them. Like you get a lot of gay male hairdressers. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. So, but she said, no, it was brilliant because they were always so good at doing things like being helpful with the heavy work, the lifting and all that stuff. So we've always had gay people around. We've always had no problem with that at all. It's just when they start to politicize it and then take it further and make it into this moronic, or bring in this transgender thing, which is so damaging. And it is. We all know, don't we? It is always all about getting us to accept paedophiles as being, because they say, don't they, there's as many gays, the number of gays, there's the same number of paedophiles. I don't know if that's true. Something I heard. So so whatever, it's a lot of people to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worrying times at the moment, and I mean, I know that may be like a very difficult subject matter for people to talk about, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's just the harsh reality of it all. And I think what needs to be done, and I know there's a lot of people that are really speaking out about this. And I mean, I know No Chance definitely is speaking out about this. He made actually a couple of really great videos about this. There was one he did recently, which I thought was really good. And really does bring a bit of an eye opener of what exactly is going on here. So, and a bit of a white pilling moment there with that. There has been a few complaints from the general public, especially here in Scotland, because of course, understandably so, many parents are not happy with this whatsoever, and of course, understandably so. But what really irks me the most is some of the SNP supporters who will actually defend this, and then some kind of bizarre mental gymnastics kind of way, they'll turn around and say, oh, well, the whole point of these questions, even as what you said earlier on, Abby, was the whole point of these questions is we want to protect the children. We can't pretend that they don't get up to this kind of thing. And, if you have a problem with that, then you possibly are the nonce in this case. And it's like, we go with the whole mental gymnastics thing with that, because I honestly think if people, not just people within the SNP, but people who support the SNP or anything like that, if they look at that and still say, yeah, I do fully support that, then I honestly think that those people are potential pedophiles, because you cannot look at something like that and think this is normal to ask a child. Because like I said earlier on, if you went up to a child and asked them these very intrusive, very perverse type of questions, then not only, of course, would it be reported, you would be thrown in prison for it, and then you'll be logged into the sex offenders registry for the rest of your life because of that, and rightfully so. But suddenly, when it's people within the Scottish government that are doing it, all of a sudden, well, that seems to be okay. What seems to be the problem here? It's just like the whole COVID stuff, like they're just protecting the general public, don't you know? It's like, where exactly is everyone's priorities at this case? I know there's people who are definitely completely against this whole thing, but there's still I don't know if you would say like a few amount of people or like a vast amount of people who will just follow the government regardless because they have no proper control of their lives whatsoever. But just real quick from Resisting the Lines. Hold on 1 second. He writes, SNP are obsessed with kids and driving a wedge between parent and child. Exactly. It's definitely putting a wedge between the child and the parent. And like I said earlier, it's definitely part of the agenda of destroying that traditional family unit. And I think, honestly, with that, it's disgusting. It really, I know I keep repeating myself over and over, but it's true in this case. It's completely disgusting, and I think people definitely should speak up more about this. And I think the parents need to understand that, look, you can't have the government control every aspect of your life. You should definitely, stand yourself up, be the master of your own destiny type of thing. And when it comes to parenting, you are the parents. You shouldn't have the government basically telling you how you should raise your own child. Especially when it comes to the whole thing of sexual education, you're the parent. anything going on with your child, sexual or otherwise, the parent has a right to know what exactly is going on, especially with stuff like that. And the fact that the SNP are doing their damnedest to try and take that away from the parents, that should speak many, many volumes on the kind of situation we're dealing with just now regarding to that.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
even going to say? Sorry, what was just going to say? Just yeah.
No, I do think the problem is, though, a lot of parents don't actually know what's going on, because there's an awful lot that doesn't get communicated by schools. So they can virtually tell you what. And also, you've got to remember, parents are under a lot of pressure these days. I mean, a lot of people have to. You need two people working in a family to make ends meet at the moment, and so there's a little bit of a disconnect sometimes, packing children off to school, and then maybe you might look at the newsletter that comes home, and you might have a go at helping with the homework or whatever, but you don't really know. A lot of people don't really know what's happening, and I think that's what that can be a bit of a problem when you just switch off to it.
Yeah, that's completely fair when it comes to parents and work and all of that. I can understand that aspect of it all. Would you think it's maybe, would it be fair to say that when it comes to the parents not knowing a lot about this type of stuff, like the sex surveys to the kids, do you think maybe it'd be fair to say that it's done very intentionally regarding to that?
Yeah, possibly. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's get this one in through the back door and not give out too much information. But look, I better not say that because I can't really comment, because I'm not in a school anyway at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't work in a school, so I wouldn't want to be damning on schools. I think there's an awful lot of teachers who don't go along with it. That is true. I just got a few friends of my own who don't like, well, in England, they don't like the curriculum, the SRE curriculum, and they do we've got this thing where we do tick boxing. So you tick your box to say you've done something, you've taught it, and you've got certain results and everything. And then, but they always want the evidence. They want to see it's been done and everything. So you get round it. You have little ways of fudging the results and entering data into a computer to make. I think a lot of that's probably going on. So when I say you shouldn't be too concerned, no, you should. Absolutely, everybody should be concerned. But there are pockets, there are little sort of saving grace areas, if you like, where there's some normal things going on, and teachers are standing up for this. Because look, if I was working in a school now, even if I was 20 years younger, I would feel uncomfortable teaching some of this stuff. It would make me feel personally uncomfortable, and therefore I would just try and avoid doing it. So I don't know if that is a general thing, or if it's just something I'm in my experience. So I don't know.
Yeah, completely fair. Yeah, and I would say there may be like different factors into it, but
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that what's going on at the moment is terrible,
Yeah.
and definitely needs to be spoken out again more and more when it comes to that. And I think even this would be a great segue into one of the articles I have here just now. I don't know if we'll manage to get all of the articles, because we're actually about an hour into the show already, which is
really quickly.
It does, yeah. Time flies when you're having fun regarding to that. So that's the old saying I hear. But what to do is hold on one second. Let me just read something from the chat from Ochiai Channel 1. Hello from Japan. I have 7 children and I share the same feeling. Education worries me sometimes. Ochiai, if you're listening just now, I definitely want to have you on the show at a later date. What I'll do is I'll see if I can maybe message you, email, or anything like that. I'll see if we can sort something out with that. Because he's a nationalist from Japan, and I think it'd be interesting hearing a nationalist from that side of the world and maybe give their perspective of what's going on over there with that. So I'll definitely have him on at some point. What was the other thing I was going to mention before moving on to the article itself? Damn it. I had it in my head, but now it's just completely past me regarding to that. Let me see. Oh yeah, from Roy Herbert. Yeah, I'll mention. I know I've already mentioned this in the chat, but Roy Herbert, if you're still watching and listening, thank you very much for the £3 donation on my Ko-fi page. I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. Let's get into the article itself, which is by the Daily Mail. I know the Daily Mail is not the most the best articles out there. They claim to be right wing, but they're not really. It's kind of like the current
They're all
Tory
the
party.
same,
Like,
aren't they? These blooming
yeah.
news feeds.
They're all the same, exactly the same, all of them. Let's have a look and see here. This would be the article just now from the Daily Mail. Outrage as primary school invites drag queen Dolly Trolley to dance in front of 9-year-olds. Drag queen Dolly Trolley was invited to Hollymount Primary School in London. Of course, it would be in London, no surprise there. The burlesque entertainer was hosted during the school's This Is Me Day. She taught pupils aged 9 and over. Let that sink in for a minute, folks. A dance and later read to students aged 5 to 9 years old. But some parents were angry to learn of the visit when the children came home. Of course, understandably so, because it's. I have a feeling this is going to be a bumpy ride when it comes to this article, but I'll read out some passages and then we can talk a bit more with that as well. Anyway, so the article here reads. A primary school has sparked fury amongst parents by inviting a drag queen to perform a show for children. Hollymount Primary School in Rains Park, South London, hosted the burlesque entertainer Dolly Trolley during its This Is Me Day last Tuesday as part of a week-long celebration of diversity. Of course, there were mentioned diversity in regard to that. Wearing knee-high leather boots and a low-cut sequined dress. I'm assuming this is what... Yeah. Okay, that's don't want to see that. But Dolly Trolley taught a dance to pupils age 9 and over before reading to pupils age 5 to 9. I'll just continue on a little bit more than here. Parents voiced their anger after learning of the drag queen's visit when their children returned from school, with some taken to the popular online forum mumsnet to express their concerns. One mother with a son and daughter at Hollymount told the Mail on Sunday, "We are usually told when an outsider will be visiting the school, but on this occasion we were not." Is anyone really that surprised? Because again, this is something we kind of talked about earlier on, where the parents are not being properly informed regarding to this, and I honestly think they're doing it on purpose, because if the parents actually were to be told about this, then the parents would be like, well, no, hold on a minute, I don't want my kids to go through anything like that whatsoever, and probably would drag their kids out of it. So I think it's pretty much a red flag at this point that the parents are not really being taught anything like this. But anyway, Abby, sorry, do you have any perspective on this so far?
Yeah, I mean, God, when I had my first YouTube channel before I shut it all down, I actually made a video about a drag queen, and what I did, I had this great grandiose idea that I was going to interview one. It was when they had the Groiper thing going, and that was do you remember that? It was all really, everyone was
I remember that, yeah.
into groiping, and I couldn't do it. I'm not brave enough. But no, I did actually call one, and I spoke to one on the phone. I couldn't even record the conversation because I'm that rubbish at IT and everything. But it was really interesting talking to this person, because he came across, it or she or whatever it calls itself, came across as being incredibly nice, really friendly, and that really was quite telling, I think, because what happens is they go into schools with their stories and they actually win the kids over. So you and I, as a adult, we can see through this and we can think, well, yes, you come across as being nice, but we do understand there's a hidden message here. You are really, this is all incredibly sick, and it's awful. It's plain evil. It bends the mind and ruins everything, so it's horrible. We know, we can see through it, but little children can't. A 5-year-old child is probably would be quite won over and enthralled by this stupid rubbish. And also, well, the more I think about it, I think probably there is a lot of schools not informing parents that this is going to happen, because, like you say, if you were told, if you were well and truly warned, if you had a newsletter, if you were contacted by email or text, on next Friday we're going to have a visit from a drag queen, to tell all the children in year 2 or reception class or whatever, a story of the 3 billy goats gruff. How do you feel about this? Nobody would answer in the positive. They would be fuming, I'm sure. So I'm pretty sure there's an awful lot of that happening, that they just don't know it's going on. So yeah, it's horrible. It's really horrible.
It really is, yeah. I don't know if this might be a bit of off topic, but and I don't know if maybe people in the chat might remember this, or maybe yourself, Abby, if you remember this. But I don't know if I've talked about it on the show. I know Mark has on PWR. There was this kind of a big story that happening with Strictly Come Dancing. Now, I don't watch the show or anything like that at all, but there was a bit of a controversy about gay performers now being part of the show and all of that. How the BBC, which was one of their most popular shows, whenever it's on. I know my grandmother normally watches it, but but even with that, there was a bit of I don't want to call it like a backlash, but people were just like, oh, here we go. And then there's a lot of people that stopped watching the show because of that. And the BBC tried to make it out as if like, oh, no, don't worry. It's nothing to do with gay people being involved with the show whatsoever. It's because of COVID reasons, like most of the performers were not vaccinated or anything like that at all. And it's like, the BBC were just being so transparent. Of course, it's got something to do with the fact that there's gay people involved, because Strictly Come Dancing as a show is about a man and a woman, complete strangers, don't know each other with that, but the connector. I know it's a competition and all of that from what I can gather from the show, but it's about that whole. I guess you would say a connectivity with both of them in terms of like dancing and whatnot. Might be completely wrong in saying that. Like I said, I don't normally watch the show, but that was one of the appeals of it. Again, a man and woman, an old school way, kind of dancing with each other. And now it's like you're trying to bring into like all the modern stuff into it, like having gays and transsexuals into it, and then trying to act as if like, although they've got nothing to do with it whatsoever. Of course, it's got something to do with it. Of course, it's got something to do with that. But the fact that the BBC don't want to admit that, again, that should speak many volumes when it comes to that. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll just continue on with the article. And I'm assuming that's I don't know if that's what this transgender person wore during the school. But I mean, see if I was a parent, my kid, was in one of these schools, and this visitor, if you will, was dressed like that. Yeah, I would not be too keen on that. I would think, what the hell are you doing? Like, you realize there's kids around, right? It's disgusting that. But I'll just continue on with the article, and then again we can move on from there with this piece. So continuing on where I left off with the quote from the mother, she continues on to say, "My daughter said she felt weird and didn't like it. She said a lot of the teachers were pulling funny faces when Dolly came out in a very revealing short beaded dress and thigh-high black leather boots." God, you can't even. I don't want to picture that. It's just even just reading that, I just feel like I'm like just cringing out. I'm just like, yeah, especially when there's kids involved with that. It's just utterly disgusting with that. Let's see. After the show, Dolly went around to the other year groups and read stories. We've spoke to both our children, and they both said their friends all thought it was weird and inappropriate for their age. Well, I mean, I can understand.
I find that's quite interesting, because that's quite a mild reaction. I don't know. I mean, as a parent, I would feel more than just a little bit of bemusement. I'd be fuming. And I also think as well that children, as we said earlier, they don't like it. They feel uncomfortable, and they, somebody coming on like that, because I've seen, you must have seen some of the video clips of them actually doing their act. They really do get in there into the audience, and they're sort of getting all touchy-feely with the children, and they're sort of, invading their personal space, because even little 4-year-olds have personal space. It's quite natural, and they simply don't like it. So I think even that's playing it all down a bit, what the reactions probably were. I definitely don't think the parents were informed about it before it happened.
Mm.
But what do I know?
I was actually going to ask you something as well that does tie into what we're talking about just now here. And I keep forgetting this boy's name, but there's this boy in America. Again, there's meant to be like a big story from the leftists. Oh, this is so progressive, and this is
Oh,
so
what little
like current
Desmond
times.
is amazing or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that
Oh God, it's
that
sickening.
that to me was just a prime example of
Yeah.
just how far gone we've become. As I know people say, well, that's in America, but I mean that can happen here too, and it really just goes to show just how
Yeah.
far gone here in the West, or in westernized countries, have just far gone down this lefty rabbit hole. I mean, the fact that like this boy is being treated not only as like a big star within like the lefty movement and all of that, especially with the LGBT plus community and all of that, but the fact that I believe there's video footage of this, of him being in. Now, I also want to keep this in mind to everyone, by the way. This is like a boy who's, at the time, I think he was maybe, what, 10, 11, or 12 years old or something like that. I don't know if it was maybe a bit older or slightly younger with that, but the point still stands that he still goes to these strip clubs, and they have all these polls and all of that. And of course, there's a lot of gay people that were really showing their support, quote unquote. And it's disgusting. And it's like, how the hell is this not grooming a child, or even going as far as saying, how is this not pedophilia? This is just beyond that. It clearly is that.
Well, I just think that that is one of the most horrible examples of child abuse, because that child is so clearly damaged. I don't think his life will ever be normal again. I mean, for a start, he looks drugged up. If you look at any sort of clip of him, I don't know. I've not heard of him for a while now, so I don't know what's happened to him, but I mean, it would take an awful lot of rehabilitating, coming back from an experience like that, because it is. I mean, it's the most hideous abuse. Anybody who treats children like that is just guilty of everything. They need to be tortured in the most horrible way. That's all I can say.
I definitely agree with you there. In fact, there's even something I've watched earlier on. It's actually one of your videos, Abby. Again, just watching stuff like that. Again, I'll just come back onto here real quick, and then I think we got the point when it comes to that article. I think we'll finish it off a little bit here, and then before I get to this part here. But there's one thing. There was a video I've watched of yours earlier on, and I think the video was called the problem with Noddy. I think it was. I don't know if
Really? Oh, God,
yeah. Yeah, I was watching that video as one of the videos, watching your content earlier on, and I don't know if it was that one or if it was the other one, but towards the end of that, there was a clip of a boy with his mom reading a book called The Gay BCs.
Oh yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I was watching that, and of course it's the mother with the boy, and the mother's like, oh, the A stands for like asexual or something like that. B stands for bi, and then so basically the mother says this part, and then the boy gives the answer of what it really means. And I remember just watching that, and I remember thinking that this is child abuse. This is straight up child abuse. Like, if this was something that was going on, like maybe a decade or 20, 30, maybe even before then, if that kind of stuff was going on back then, rightfully so, the kids would be taken away from the parents, and the parents would probably be charged of child abuse, because that is the definition of grooming your child into believing a certain ideology. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's it really is just it's just I can't really say it anymore with that, because again, it's just how far gone we've become as a society. And I don't know if it'd be a great idea to bring up the whole Ukraine situation just now, but what I will say briefly just this. What's going on when it comes to the whole situation of that in the Ukraine? I mean, it goes to show just how weak we've become as a society, as a country, as a people, as a continent, if you will. Because again, this is all to do with the stuff that what our people and our kids are being brought up with. This whole diversity, critical race theory, like no sense of pride within their nation or people anymore. And this is all done by a specific group of people that I know I keep bringing up on the show. Momoto, thank you very much for the €5 donation. Thank you very much for that. It's yeah, it's a shame. It really is utterly shameful what's going on just now with that. Anyway, so sorry, Abby. Again, any more perspective on that before I finish off that article just now?
On what? On the transvestite child, you mean?
Well, I would say that, but I think maybe in
Are you
terms
talking
of
about the Ukraine?
oh, sorry, I think I was going on to like different like topics all at once. I think
No, listen, you remember I'm getting old. Lose my train of thought. I can't concentrate. Go on. What are we talking about?
Sorry, I think I was going on off a tangent when it comes to the whole Ukraine situation.
Okay.
Anyway, but I think going back to what I was saying before about that clip of the boy reading the BBC
having the
book.
book read. No, that is quite interesting because one thing that I am really interested in is children's literature, and because that's one thing I do for PA as well. I've been writing these stories, and it's been really great because Mark is a great designer. Well, that's his job, I think, and he can take my pictures and make them look great, which is amazing because I'm not really a natural artist and I can't draw or anything. But one thing I do think is we just don't have much of at the moment is books that a parent can go into a shop and buy for a child that represents his or her child as a white race child. What they can buy is anything but. Every single child's book that's published today has got an agenda in it. I've made loads of videos about this. I really do. You're probably boring everybody now, but honestly, you can't buy a book for a child which has is about a story of little Sita with a same-sex parents or freaks bringing him or her up, and it's all about loving. Everyone's great, and we've all got to love everybody except our own kind. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot buy a book for a child now that is just a story about an adventure, say a little child will have, maybe finding caterpillars and having fun in nature and so on and so on. The only books that are published that you are worth buying for your children these days are books that were published about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So you've got to go right back to find books like gosh, I can't even think of any examples, but things that maybe Shirley Hughes wrote, and all these great old illustrators like the Albergs and people like that. Great children's writers. But now, and that particular book that he was reading is just one of many. There are hundreds like that, and honestly, it's really worrying because, of course, schools buy them. Yeah, somebody's just put in the thing, the tiger that came to tea. I don't know if you know that the tiger's meant to represent the Gestapo.
Oh, I did not know that.
I won't go there. It's a bit ridiculous. But anyway, if it does, it means the Gestapo was very nice because the tiger in the story is very nice. But that had a little white girl in and a white family and stuff. But that's not what you can buy for your children now. You can only buy these rubbish things. So they're just very typical. Oh, sorry, I was saying as well, but schools buy these books as well in bulk because they need to supply, they've got to build up their resources and they've got to have, books to send home and everything and for reading practice and stuff. And it's not so much now about learning to read. It's now the emphasis is on the content, what children have in their books, in their reading books, and the content is just so disgusting, and that's very typical of it. So it's awful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just real quick with the chat before I get into the article here, there's a question for you, Abby, and it's from Rory Herbert. And they ask, does Abby remember the Millie Molly Mandy series of children's books?
Yeah, I'm old enough for that, yes. And the Just William books and all those Enid Blyton books and all those wholesome things that kids used to read. Yeah, I mean, they're all being censored now. In fact, I was watching one of, I call it the Simon Show. I don't know if you've seen History Debunked. He makes some quite interesting videos sometimes, but he made one the other day about how there's I didn't realize that a lot of Enid Blyton books have actually been rewritten and censored in the rewriting. And one of the books that he was mentioning was about a girls' boarding school, and it actually has a trigger warning for the old version, the original version of the Enid Blyton book. It's a boarding school story, saying that there's going to be violence in this story. And there is, because one of the girls takes it upon herself to slap another girl for being a brat. So that got a trigger warning. But you don't get any trigger warnings when you read a book like the woke ABC book. Do you see what I mean? There's so much hypocrisy here going on here, and it's just so everything is so twisted at the moment. It's horrible. Yeah, Peter and Jane. I was a big fan of using Peter and Jane. Somebody's written that in the chat box. I was a real big fan of Peter and Jane books for teaching reading, because they were so well written for teaching.
Excellent. No worries. Peter and Jane, I don't know. Hold on 1 second. I want to check that real quick, because that sounds familiar for me. But let me have
They're reading
here.
books, you see. If you went, well, people forget how they learn to read, but they go through a process, and it's like they tend to use these. Yeah, those. They use these very graded readers. So you see that one on the bottom row there. It just says Peter and Jane. That would be in the first book, and then they gradually introduce more vocabulary. But look at the content and compare it to the content now that you would find in a sort of early years learning to read book. There's just no comparison. It's another world. Racing to read. Yeah, I remember those.
It really shows you, like, because obviously these books, from what I'm seeing just now, are very wholesome and but of course what we're seeing now, it's the polar opposite of that, and it's sad. I think stuff like this, like these types of books, it really goes to show almost like a time capsule of a different time and era. But I wish, hopefully one day we might come back to this at some point. I mean, maybe not now, or maybe not like fairly soon, but hopefully we can somewhat influence the general public and to showcase, all the stuff we're seeing, like the woke stuff and that, it's completely cancerous, and we need to do some changes, like maybe go back to a certain point in our lives, to maybe bring some of the stuff back, but of course not try and like modernize it or anything like that at all, because I was watching one of your videos again regarding to this. Part of the problem we were seeing is, I think it was actually to do with, you were talking about a specific author, and I think there was like a more modern author, Jacqueline something.
Jacqueline Wilson. Yeah.
Wilson, yeah. I think she was like planning on. I'm pretty sure that this must have been done already, but she was going to be rewriting a certain book
Yeah,
and
in
trying
the
to like.
dancing books. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another problem with that. It's like, oh, let's take these old classic books that and try and like modernize it. The reason we're trying to modernize it is because we think that they're books of a certain time that are very outdated, if you will, and we need to try and modernize it for modern readers and that. And it's like, can you not just like leave it alone? I mean,
But you know what? It's not rocket science to get hold of a book. Like, I did a video on a really lovely children's book called Emil and the Detectives, and that is one of my favorite books. It was set in Germany in the 1920s, early 1930s, whatever. So obviously you can imagine what the political background was at the time, but the writer doesn't mention it. He just tells the story. It's this adventure that this little boy has in Berlin. So I just think that we don't need you can write, so you can take a book like that and read it to a child. It's not difficult to not modernize it as you, the reader, goes along, because you need a bit of interaction with children with their reading. So like I used to do this with my kids. Like, for example, if I read an Enid Blyton book to them, I might have to explain that in the olden days it was perfectly normal for children to go on bikes and cycle off to Devon and have an adventure on an island where there was a deserted castle and there were no adults around. It was normal, that sort of thing happened. Whereas now that doesn't happen because children are very protected, and they're just not allowed to do things like that. I mean, it's just, do you see what I mean? I mean, like, you'd have to explain why there was a maid working in the house, or why the children went to boarding school. And I don't know, there's all sorts of little old-fashioned things, quirky things that they said and did. All you do is just explain it when you're reading the book to children, and they soon work it out that this is set in the past. It's not a problem. We don't have to rewrite those books. We just need to be aware that they were written a long time ago. That's all. And yeah, there's just no justification for bringing up all this, woke stuff into newly written books. So I don't know. It's just one thing I really, really do get quite het up about, because I did quite a lot of research into it when I was at university the second time round, and it's just one of those things that I specialised in, children's writing, but children's literature and everything. So.
Yeah, completely fair with that. Yeah, like, just leave the past as it is, regarding to that, and then. I know there's going to be, like, the whole trigger warnings, like, oh, you be careful reading this. Yeah. And it's like,
you've got trigger warnings on Jane Eyre as well, apparently, according to the Simon Show. Jane Eyre and all these, these Victorian classics, because I don't know why. I just can't understand. I think Wuthering Heights has got one as well, because I think Heathcliff's a bit rough. But you don't get a trigger warning on that moronic ABC book. Whereas I think that's scarier, to have that being forced on a child. I think it's much more damaging.
Of course, very much so, yeah. Very much so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back onto the article real quick, just read a couple more passages from, or paragraphs, because I think there's actually something that's interesting about this when it comes to the article. Continuing from there, a poll on Mumsnet found that 87% of almost 3,000 respondents regarded the drag queen's appearance at a primary school as inappropriate. The performance website and online videos advertise a raunchy act that has been performed in clubs and cabaret shows across London and overseas. Completely bonkers, utterly delightful, and always at 100 miles per hour. Dolly Trolley is a Yorkshire-born firecracker based in London. It states she is known for high energy. Well, let's be honest here, high energy drag and burlesque, fierce dance moves, and as a queer fitness icon with his workout phenomenon, drag aerobatics. The concerned mother added, I have spoken to a few other parents. Only one I have spoken to was supportive. It's probably an SJW, of course, no surprise there. Or, maybe they're Jewish. You never know these days. The others, including me, are all very unhappy with a few things. We were not warned that this was going to be happening. We have since looked Dolly up online, and they have some very inappropriate for children content on their website and their social media pages. Some of the images are very revealing and sexual. Essentially, they are an X-rated adult entertainer. No surprise there, of course. How is this person a good role model for our kids? Why did the school purposely not tell us about this? Due to their online content, I feel that this is a safeguarding issue. A spokesman for Merton Council on behalf of the school, and Dolly Trolley said, Hollymount School held a themed week to underline its commitment to diversity, quote unquote. Neither the school nor the governors are aware of any formal complaints. Everyone can everyone press X to doubt on that? Because I mean, there's no way that this person is going to say, "Oh, we never received any complaints." I'm sure they must have received complaints about this, but then they're going to try and hide it as if, "Oh no, we never had any complaints or anything like that at all." It's so transparent in this case. Let me see. I'll come out of that because that's pretty much the end of the article right here, and then we'll go back onto this real quick. So yeah, that's that article. It's again just complete utter filth. It's just the fact that the schools never informed the parents of this. I know we talked about earlier on that there may be different factors into that, but the fact that the schools still never went out of their way to inform the parents really speaks major volumes of, like, they know for a fact that if the parents actually know exactly what the kids will be going through, they know for a fact that the parents would not be a fan of that. I mean, we've just read it in the article there that the parents were not too happy, except one. Of course, one of them. There has to be that one person who.
They've always got to find one. Always.
Yeah, they always have to have that one person who's like, "Oh, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, this is what's going on nowadays. What's the problem?" And those are the types of people you really want to not only maybe have your kids stay away from them as humanly possible, but definitely keeping a close eye on those people, because you never know, behind the scenes they could be very deviant type of people regarding to that, but you never know with that. So let me see here. 6:37. We're just about 23 minutes away from the show ending, which is really good stuff. I just also want to say real quick as well, there was a message that popped up on Telegram that Mark, there's going to be a PA book club review later on this evening. I think that starts at 7 o'clock. So, of course, towards the end of the show, I'll pop the link for that in the chat so people can move over to that show as well. Not to say that the show's coming to an end or anything like that at all. We still got a bit of time left to go. In fact, let me have a look and see here with that. Actually, real quick before I get into the next article here, what I want to do first of all, folks, is I want people to check out. I've spoken about this in the previous episode, but I want people to check out this particular link right here, and it's the link for the PA Young Scots TikTok account. So I've talked about this the previous episode. I'll just talk about this briefly. They've opened up a new TikTok account. I know TikTok is, maybe people have very not comfortable with that platform because of how lefty and how I don't know if it's true in saying that it's very Chinese backed regarding to TikTok. But what I would ask of people is if you could check it out and maybe give the guys a follow regarding to their brand new TikTok account. So that's PA Young Scots' new TikTok account. Give them a follow, and I think they do have like 2 videos up there already. So again, the more support, the better with that. So what we'll do is possibly to end the stream tonight. Again, it's not definitely going to be a stream or end of the stream or anytime soon. I think the final part we'll do is talk about another article I found. Well, actually, no, maybe we could talk about this because I know, Abby, we had a short conversation before the show started. Maybe if you want, we could talk about John Oliver, because I know we touched upon that earlier on. If you want to.
Okay, well, my John Oliver story is, oh God, so frustrating. I have this lovely subscriber who sent me this. Well, it was meant to be a comedy. I don't know anything about this person, this John Oliver person, but he does this show in America, and anyway, it was his topic on the last show. Well, he was talking about the Canadian truckers. He doesn't like them. He thinks they're dreadful people, troublemakers. But he was also talking about critical race theory in schools, and so I spent the whole of yesterday making a video about it. Really frustrating as well because it was quite long, and I don't like to make them too long because I'm not under any illusions about my ability to make YouTube videos, but it was quite interesting because I just thought, how can anyone be so turn this into a comedy? It's basically, he was berating all these American parents that were pushing back against it being taught in American schools and just calling them morons and all this sort of thing. Really bigoted man, total horrible hypocrite and everything. Anyway, it's a long story. I won't bore you with it, but I couldn't get it on YouTube. So my contribution to content creation this week has been on your show. Because I couldn't do it. I just could not do it. It was so frustrating because I just felt he was so awful that I wanted not to just to have my own blood pressure raised. I wanted everybody's to go up as well, because I never heard such a moron. I mean, this whole critical race theory, to be honest, I didn't really get it myself, but it's not that I don't understand the theory. Anyone can understand a theory. It's just words. You just get your head around it eventually. But it just doesn't make any sense because it defies what's natural. We're not programmed to be the way that they say we're meant to be. I don't know. I don't want to get into it because it takes forever, and it really did take me a long time. So, but do you know who I'm talking about anyway? I mean, is it just me? I just, came across this person.
No, I have heard about John Oliver before. I think he's the current host of the Daily Show in America.
Yeah.
Something
like
and
that.
He's a guy. He does. I've seen a couple of clips of him. I mean, even I got a picture of him just now, and I don't know if it's just me, but I don't know if anyone else gets this as well with John Oliver, but every time I look at him, I just think of him as like the fifth rejected member of the Beatles. He just has that look, and he kind of looks like John Lennon and like Paul McCartney, back in the 60s or whatnot. But there's just something about that. But anyway, I think I can't remember what clip exactly, but there was something like he said, and I remember just thinking like, I can't stand you. I mean, John Stewart, I couldn't really stand him as well, but this guy, he makes John Stewart look like a saint, in my opinion. He's just so irredeemable. And I think someone in the chat said that this guy, John Oliver, is like a pure, utter traitor to the core.
He is, yeah.
And for me with that, I've never seen the clip of myself when it comes to the whole critical race theory. But of course, for me, actually, what clip was it? I don't know if it was him or if it was another late night host that did a COVID special, like doing some kind of thing with the vaccinations, like, oh, you should take the vaccine and all of that. And it's like, oh God. But with him making fun of parents, rightfully so, like criticizing critical race theory with that, because the whole point of critical race theory, I know many people in the chat know this, and I know you may know this, Abby, with that, but the whole point of critical race theory is that it's incredibly anti-white. It's basically taking all the white students that, well, firstly, they'll take the black students as like, so you're a black student, your people are Africans, you should be proud of your heritage and all of that. Whereas if they go up to a white kid or a white student and they'll be like, this is what your people have done to these non-whites, you should be ashamed of who you are, you should be ashamed of your culture and your history. And of course, a lot of parents in America, understandably so, were horrified by this, which of course, again, as they should be, because now, of course, they would make all these points about, oh, this is so racist, and like, how can you be for this when you're supposed to be about equality and this and that? Which, I mean, I know the whole point of racism is basically code words for anti-white, but at least these parents are still coming out of the woodworks and saying, look, we don't support this in any way, shape, or form. This is completely against the whole equality and all this and that. So I might not necessarily agree with that aspect, but at least like these parents are still coming out and saying, look, this is horrible. We're calling it out for what it is. And of course, for someone like John Oliver to come out of the woodwork and make fun of those parents, I mean, is anyone really that surprised to begin with? Of course, he's a pure lefty from the ground up. Although I think it's all to do with the fact that he's trying to please the his corporate masters, if you will, who are, of course, I would imagine so being part of this whole agenda to begin with. Sorry, Abby, you were going to say something there, sorry?
No, not at all. I didn't really have much to say about him, apart from the fact that I just think he's revolting. I'd never heard of him until I made this video, and then I got to know all about him. And yeah, as I say, I couldn't manage to get it on YouTube. I'm banned. That's banned. But I just think the whole thing is so horrible, because it's not just being it's not just being against the race, calling us all racists. I mean, it's like the dirtiest word in the English dictionary now. To be a racist is like the worst thing you can be. It's just, but now you've got to be anti-racist, which basically means you've got to not just be against the racist, you've got to hate the racist. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I can't explain it. It's just so ridiculous. And no, I just really, it doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like we're always being attacked, and it's just never ending. It's just ongoing. Everyone else can be proud of themselves. Everyone can have their flipping homeland, and their identity and everything, but not the English. So yeah.
It's. I was going to say as well, real quick with that, in terms of the term racism has like power to it. I remember growing up as well. Racism, Nazi and all of that. Back in the day when I was a wee lad, of course, hearing those words, they had power to them, they had meaning to them, and all of that. If you heard someone being called a racist or a Nazi, a fascist, or anything like that, or even a more example, like say like pedophile or anything like that at all, again, those words had meaning to them, they had power to them. And it's like, oh, like that person is that, is that type of, so he or she is that type of person, like, because they've been called that word. Nowadays, because it's been used so many times by the left, it could be for anything. Like you could say,
it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect probably any of us. I couldn't care less if someone calls me a racist. I just think, do you even know what the word means? It's just so ridiculous. So it's not an insult anymore.
No, definitely not. Especially when it comes to the whole term, like they normally use, this person, this such and such, is part of the alt-right. It's like, okay, well, do you know exactly what the alt-right is?
Yes.
And they can never give you an answer for it. They're like, oh, well, it must be this. You don't even know, do you? No. Well, okay, end of conversation.
No, it's true. And it's like the way they bang this blooming word Nazi round as well. And, just talking about the Ukraine situation, how they can be calling Putin a Nazi. Well, they don't even know what that word means. and it's like, just go and find out what that word means before you call him one. And I don't know. And then I find out, I didn't even know this, but I found out that the president of Ukraine was Jewish. So it's just also ludicrous. Anyway.
Oh, speaking of that, there was a report I've seen earlier on about that, where was it the president or the prime minister of Ukraine who?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Who you said was Jewish? Is that correct? Yeah.
I think so. I think he is.
There was something I've read earlier on about that, where during this whole situation with Ukraine just now, he passed a law of about anti-Semitism law. So basically, if you were to criticize the Jews or anything like that at all, then of course you'd be thrown in prison or be charged for anti-Semitism. And it's like, what weird timing that, especially what's going on just now, which is very weird timing, I must say. I can't remember if it was the Daily Mail or another news outlet that pointed that out, but I remember just thinking, that's really weird timing, that very weird indeed. Anyway, sorry, what I got on the screen just now was Durham Fox in the chat who writes, Google the nuclear family and press images. So I got that up, and here's images of the nuclear family. You would expect something from the 50s, something like this. But of course, you got all this stuff here. You got a biracial family.
I've seen this sort of thing before. Yeah.
You got like a black family, you got Asian family, and it's like, well, there's one image of a white family, but that's really all.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one there, maybe a third one, but that's it. Most of it is it's filled to the brim of pure progressivism. It's like, oh, this is the nuclear family. It's like, no. When you say nuclear family, people would think something like this, for example, like from the
Yeah.
50s. Like
That's
that.
right.
That's what people would think of the classical nuclear family. You know, a white couple with kids, and that's what people would instantly think of. They don't think of all the modern stuff like a black family, or because I mean, let's be honest when it comes to black families, the father is never around anyway. So I mean, how can you count that as a nuclear family? But anyway, but it's just it's like taking everything that you know and care about and just completely twisting it to make it something that's clearly not. And it's again, it's all part of that agenda, isn't it? It's all part of this whole anti-white agenda with that. But
Definitely. Yeah, it's really bad.
mm,
No, I often have to like Google things to go, just to find a little image to go with something I'm saying on a video. I can't think of any examples now, but if you look for something like, I put, I wanted an image for some reason of a middle-aged frazzled woman just to go with something I was saying on a YouTube video. I got everything but what I was looking for, every single race you can imagine, but not the one I wanted. And it's just Google, isn't it? They must have done it. I think it's all deliberate the way they do this.
yeah,
It's really horrible. It's really horrible. We're definitely under attack, I think. They might as well drop bombs on us.
yeah. I was just going to say as well with that, again, someone in the chat, who was it that asked me to do this? Will Martin in the chat, search for white couples. Well,
Yeah,
here I
I've
have on the
seen that.
screen white couples. Again,
That's
how,
so typical. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's like maybe a couple of them genuine white couples, but most of it is like, again, biracial and like black couples. It's like, how the hell is that white couples to begin with? And again, it's all part of that agenda. It's taking everything you know about say white couples and all of that and completely twisting it. It's subverting it. And it's really it's so brazen about it. It's just right in your face about it with this kind of stuff. It's and the thing that and the fact that people who are promoting this kind of stuff think that we can continue on to not necessarily support it, but just be completely fine with it, they're wrong. Nobody is fine with this whatsoever. So
No, it's horrible. I saw two old ones there. They've got two old white people.
that's,
That's okay. If they get it together, that seems to be fine. But
well,
everyone else is mixed up.
yeah. Well, regarding to the old white couple, I mean, there's an argument to be made with that, Abby. I'm sure this is a point these types of people would make. Well, they're an old couple. They'll die out eventually anyway. So I mean, what's the big deal? It's like
right.
it's like especially when Brexit happened. And I know that may be a bit off topic, but Brexit happened. Brexit happened back in 2016, and all the people were like, "Okay, this happened," but most of the voters were like old. They're gonna die out anyway. So just at least if they die
I'm not
out,
dead yet.
but I think the point they're making was that racism, sexism, and all of that are still happening because of these old white people, and it's like. Do you people have any bottom whatsoever? Is there not a thing where you're like, you know what? Let's not go after that. Let's keep it as it is with that. Let's have a sense of like a code of honor when it comes to this type of stuff. But no, there's no bond with these people, none whatsoever regarding to that. But what to do here? I'm just gonna get something real quick. Like I mentioned earlier on. I know the PA Book Club is going to be live in a few moments.
It's nearly at the end of. It's 5 minutes to the end of this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Which again, like I said earlier on, time flies when you're having fun.
When you told me it was going to be 2 hours, I was a little bit worried. I thought, oh my god, that's a long time.
Honestly, like, there are times when it comes to the stream, it depends on if I'm doing a full 2 hours or anything like that. It really flies by. If I actually noticed that with a couple of episodes ago, I was like, wait a minute, is it really that time already? I can't even believe that. But anyway, what I'm gonna do, folks, is I'm gonna post the links for the PA Book Club stream for tonight. So if you want to check that out for 7 p.m., then definitely do so. I'm just going to try and see where I can find it. I'm sure Mark might post something about that
He puts it on his
here.
Telegram, doesn't he? I think.
Yeah, usually he would post it during the show. I
That's
got it here.
how I get
Yeah,
it.
let's see here. Right, PA Book Club. Weird Tales of Monsters. Oh, because this is all to do with like a comic book with that, I'm assuming. I think I've seen that image before. But of course, Mark is going to be on the show. He'll be joined by Laura Towler, Aunt Sally, as well as Biz Archives. I think the guest of that show will be. That's fair enough. Right. So what I'll do is I'll just post the links for the Mark's Odyssey channel, Laura's D Live, the Radio Albion link if you want to listen to it through audio, and of course I'll also post the Entropy link for Mark's Entropy. So if you have any questions to ask them during the show, paid or unpaid, then the Entropy link will be in the chat as well if you want to give that a look regarding to the show as well. So there's Mark's Odyssey. And I'll get the other links as well, real quick. But I just want to say as well, while I'm doing that, I really appreciate your time on the show, Abby. I mean, I'm quite surprised of the fact that the show went relatively quick. I mean, not to downgrade the other guests I've had on the show previously to this, because obviously they were great guests to be on the show. I know Joe is a recurring guest from PA Wales who keeps coming back on the show. I think he was on the show for like 4 times or all of that, but it's great having guests on, and I really do appreciate you coming along this evening. It really has been a blast, and hopefully in the near future, I can, if you want to, of course, I can bring you back on in a future episode regarding to that. So,
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm sorry if I talk a lot. Some people have said that I talk a lot. I'm afraid that's just me. I can't help it. It's just I don't know, just got a lot to say. And I think my problem is I'm surrounded. I live in a world of normies. I really do. My family, my friends. In fact, I've lost a lot of friends over the way I am and everything, feel and think about things. But having said that, I think I've made a few new ones as well, which is good. So yeah, I hope I didn't go on too much.
no, not at all. Honestly, I think even I'm seeing people in the chat at the moment. People really did appreciate your appearance on the show. In fact, I've just popped up his comment just now from Rory Herbert. 40s in the chat for Abby, which definitely do so if you can, folks. It seems at the moment, even English Rose, real quick, saying, thank you, Chief Moody, for a great stream and a lovely guest and from Abby. So it seems everyone really enjoyed your appearance, and hopefully they would like to have you back on the show. Of course, same with me with that in this case. Again, it's really good stuff. I know we talked about earlier on that you were a bit nervous of coming along because you don't normally do these types of live streams. I know you were on with Bonnie Lad not too long ago, but we've seen that time flies again regarding
Well, I
to
think
that.
I'm getting used to it now, and it's not sort of a daunting thing. I just come and speak on it. Really, that's all you do. You don't have to worry that all these people are listening, but they're not actually in the room, so I don't have to, worry like that. But it's yeah, it's been great. It's been really nice talking to you. So thank you very much. Honestly, I really appreciate it.
Not a problem whatsoever. What I'm going to do now, folks, is, again, thank you very much for coming along, Abby. What I'll do now, folks, is I posted the links in the chat, so definitely check it out for PA Book Club, which will be live at 7 p.m. I'm just going to see if I can find a song for the outro song, of course, for the show, as I normally do. Because I have Abby, aka the Anglo Saxon teacher, as a guest for this evening. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Before I get into that, so I just also want to say real quick, folks, is that this will be the last show up until so basically I won't be streaming this coming Thursday or Sunday. I'm going to be busy with something else during that week. But what I will say is I will be back with episode 68 on, I'm just checking my calendar real quick, on the 10th of March regarding to that. So yeah, so the reason I can't be on for episode 68 for Thursday or next Sunday is because I'm going to be going away regarding to that for PA when it comes to that, in terms of like a future event kind of thing. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. But Yeah, that's all I will say when it comes to that. Any updates or anything like that, I'll keep you guys posted on Telegram and any other platforms I'm on. You can see at the bottom of the screen if you want to follow me there when it comes to that. And definitely follow Abby on her YouTube channel. I know I've posted that in the chat earlier on, but just in case if people missed that, hold on 1 second. I'll just get that and I'll post
Can
it.
I just say quickly, I'm really rubbish at finding time to make videos at the moment. It's just one of those things that it's called life, you know, it gets in the way a bit.
Yeah.
And but I do love doing it because I find it's a very creative process, and I do find that as I say, it's a way of venting things and having a bit of a rant, and then getting really nice comments back from people who are like-minded, because I do think that sometimes people who are like us, we've got these these dodgy nationalist tendencies. I think we're a bit, you know, we are regarded as being a bit genetically defective or something. But it's so lovely when you know that you get some really great comments back and you think, well, no, there are people out there that see the world the way I do and we do. And it is wonderful to know that. So, yeah, it's been really nice talking to you. So thanks.
No worries with that whatsoever. We'll just end the show there with that just now. The link for Abby's YouTube channel is in the description there, in the chat. So if you want to check it out and give her a sub, definitely do so with that. The last thing I want to do in this case is, as I said, play like an outro song. And because, Abby, you're the guest for this evening, is there any particular song you would want to end the show with?
Oh, I wish you'd asked me that earlier. I'm thinking of something. No idea. I'm really sorry. Honestly, no, don't let me get started. I'll be dithering all night. No, come on. You choose something. It's your show.
Right. No worries. Okay, what to do is I'll pick a song with that here. So if you also don't mind, Abby, if you could, of course, I'll be doing the same thing with that as well. If you could mute yourself, and that way the show will definitely come to an end with that. Perfect.
Sure.
Right then. So what I'll do is I'll just see if I can pick this part here. Maybe I can pick this song here for the evening. But everyone else in the chat, thank you all very much for tuning into Mood of the Nation tonight. I really appreciate everyone coming on. Like I said, there will not be a Mood of the Nation episode 68 this coming Thursday or next Sunday due to I'll be away for that week. Again, any updates or anything like that at all, I'll keep you guys posted with that. But in the meantime, thank you all once again for coming along. This is Chief Moody signing out, and also Abby, aka the Anglo Saxon teacher, with me this evening. Thank you all for watching tonight's episode. I shall see you in the next episode. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you and good night.
Yes, we want to be free, live our lives as they should be. Here's the thing, while that's nice, every action has a price. We're meant to be much more than this, and find a home which we all miss. So it's time to grow up as we're ticking down the clock. Forever keep in mind, we're fighting for our kind, to learn from future made secure. We were meant to survive, to transcend, go forth and thrive, find the light, leave behind all the things that made us blind. It's up to us to show the way, to hold the torch, come what may. We will do all we can till time's not running through our hands. Forever keep in mind, we're fighting for our kind, to learn from those before, our future made secure.